Jim Caviezel sat in front of cameras and said out loud what no one in Hollywood was willing to say, that Epstein wasn't at the top, that there is a network above Epstein, and the people running it are still out there. He named names, and the moment he did, every major studio in the country was told one thing: touch this and you're done. You'll be finished in 3 years. Most of them listened, and that right there should tell you everything you need to know. So, who do you think is really at the top of this? I know every one of us wants to know who is above Epstein, and by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly who Caviezel is pointing at, what they've been doing, and why the system worked so hard to make sure none of this ever got out. First, let's cover the basics so you have the full picture. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into who Jim Caviezel and Epstein are because most of my viewers already know that, so let's only cover the things you need to know. Jim Caviezel is an actor. You probably know him from The Passion of the Christ, the 2004 Mel Gibson film where he played Jesus. That movie was massive, and he was at the very top of his career after that. But here's the thing that changed everything for him. While he was in Colombia shooting another film, traffickers walked straight up to his crew in broad daylight and offered them children, boys or girls, like it was a normal transaction at a market. That's the kind of thing that doesn't leave you. You can't just go back to making movies after that. So he didn't. He poured everything into making Sound of Freedom, a film based on the true story of Tim Ballard, a former government agent who left his career behind to rescue children from trafficking networks operating across Latin America. Caviezel brought the finished film to Hollywood and expected the industry to get behind it, a movie about saving children. Who wouldn't support that, right? Instead, he was blacklisted.
And everyone was told, from Rupert Murdoch, from Fox, to every studio, look, if you touch this thing, you will be out, you will be done. You'll be finished in 3 years.
Every major studio and every major network was told, not asked, told to stay away from a movie about rescuing kids. And as for the Epstein files, when those documents were finally unsealed, people expected a few familiar names. What they got instead was a list of some of the most powerful and most beloved people on the planet: celebrities, politicians, producers, and philanthropists. The question Caviezel has been asking ever since is simple. Why would Hollywood protect a movie about saving children unless some of the people inside Hollywood had a reason to be afraid of what it was exposing? So what is Caviezel actually saying? Let's be clear about this. He's not saying Epstein was some lone predator who slipped through the cracks. He's saying Epstein was one arm of something much, much bigger. And here's the line that stuck with a lot of people. It's an 8-armed octopus. If you take out just one arm, it grows back. You have to take the head. That's how he's describing this. Not one island, not one man, but a system with layers, with names attached to it. Names you know, names that have been smiling at you from your TV screen for years. At a Sound of Freedom screening, audience members kept calling out Epstein Island while watching the film, and Caviezel responded in a way that got a lot of attention. He said, "We're shining a light on something they don't want shined on. We're shining a light on something they don't want shined on." He has also talked publicly about the media's role in all of this, and he doesn't hold back. Mainstream media is not helping you, it's hindering you. They've done a horrible job telling us what's really happening.
Shining a light on something they don't want shined on.
And then he said something that hit even harder. He said a lot of agencies are involved at the highest level because many of the agencies are involved at the highest level. Think about what that means. He's not talking about low-level bad actors. He's saying that people who are supposed to stop this are part of it. Hollywood was threatened into silence. Now let's talk about what happened when he tried to put this story on screen, because this is where things get really hard to explain away. Sound of Freedom was a finished film, a real story about a former government agent rescuing real children from real trafficking networks. You'd think every studio would be fighting to put their name on it. Instead, a message went out across the industry, and here's what that message sounded like. If you touch this thing, you will be out. You will be done. You'll be finished in 3 years.
Because a lot of the agencies are involved at the highest level.
Every major studio and every major network was told to keep their distance from a movie about saving kids, and most of them did exactly that. No pushback, no questions. They just fell in line. That alone should be keeping you up at night. Caviezel described what Hollywood has become in a way that's hard to forget. Gone are the days of Hollywood handing someone power and saying, do whatever you want. We've come to a very, very dark place.
Everyone was told, from Rupert Murdoch, from Fox, to every studio, look, if you touch this thing, you will be out, you will be done. You'll be finished in 3 years.
Now, the media's response to the film was to link it to QAnon and call it a conspiracy. Here's the thing though, the film was made years before QAnon even existed. But once it became a massive box office hit, labeling it a conspiracy theory was the easiest way to discredit it. Even the film's own director, Alejandro Monteverde, had to publicly distance himself from Caviezel's statements to try and protect the movie's reputation. He said Caviezel's comments were hurting his work. So you're telling me that the director of a film about child trafficking had to go on record and distance himself from his lead actor because that actor was speaking too openly about child trafficking? You can't make this stuff up. And what about the missing children no one talks about? Let's talk numbers for a second, because this is where Caviezel gets very specific and very hard to dismiss. He's been saying publicly that over 300,000 children under 18 are pulled into trafficking operations in the United States alone. That's not a rounding error, it's a full-scale crisis. And then there are the 85,000 children who crossed the second border in recent years and simply disappeared. No follow-up, no records, no official answers from anyone in power. Where did they disappear to?
And I think Americans understand that they also have precious pearls in their children, and they don't want them taken. And they're looking at the government now and going, what are you doing? What are the three-letter agencies doing? They're not doing their job, especially when 85,000 children crossed the border this last year and disappeared. Where did they disappear?
He witnessed this firsthand. Back in Colombia, while his crew was filming, traffickers walked up and openly offered them children, casually, as if it was nothing. He described it like this: children are being sucked into the deepest recesses of hell.
You know, when we were down in Cartagena, the guys would come up, traffickers, and they would, right in front of us, ask us if we wanted niñas or niños, and little boys or little girls. And people think that that's not something that happens here in the United States. Well, absolutely it does. Over 300,000 children under the ages of 18 were sucked into the deepest recesses of hell. And it's disgusting that the media hasn't covered it like they should. There obviously is really good media like yourself, but others that completely ignore it. And I think people need to understand, American people are starting to understand what is actually going on.
And the scary part is, he's saying this happens right next door, not just in other countries, but right here. Every name in the Epstein files, every person on those flight logs, every guest at those private dinners, Caviezel is saying they could all be part of the answer to where those kids went. Oprah Winfrey's name appears 5 times. Now, let's get to the names, because this is what really caught your attention. When the Epstein files dropped, Oprah Winfrey's name appeared not once, but 5 times. For context, that's not a coincidence, that's a pattern. But here's the thing, Oprah's silence around powerful connected abusers is not new. It's been a recurring thing. Harvey Weinstein, Sean Combs, and now Epstein. Every single time she was somewhere nearby, every single time she said nothing. Let's go through the timeline at her school. In 2007, Oprah opened a school for underprivileged girls in South Africa. It was praised around the world. She was celebrated as a hero and a humanitarian. Then, almost immediately, things started leaking out. A dormitory matron was arrested on 14 counts of indecent acts against young students. A lawsuit followed and a settlement was reached behind closed doors. No public details, no real accountability. The matron was eventually acquitted due to contradictions in witness testimony, and Oprah simply moved on. In 2009, 7 students were suspended for harming a classmate. More recently, many rumors have circulated on TikTok and the internet about this African school. Social media has been on fire, with accounts claiming Oprah's private jet visited Epstein's island 11 times, and people are connecting that directly to the missing girls from South Africa. Now, I'm not saying Oprah is a bad person, because that's not the goal of this video. I want you to understand one thing. These rumors are always asked in the comments on my videos, like, how is Oprah connected to all of this? Let me tell you, Oprah is a billionaire who is kind and generous, actually helping more people than most of us notice. But to cover this case fully, we also need to look at the other side of the coin. Caviezel's framing of Oprah isn't that she's just someone who made bad friends. He's saying she's a legitimizing force, a node in the network, the human infrastructure that makes a system like this look safe, trustworthy, and even aspirational to the rest of the world. And the playbook is always the same. Every time the heat got close, she didn't run, she rebranded. The Maui fundraising, the Golden Globe speech about believing survivors, the Me Too pivot, every time things got uncomfortable, Oprah became the solution to the very problem she may have been part of creating. That's not bad luck, that's a strategy. What happens to people who try to speak? Caviezel has been very open about the risks that come with saying all of this out loud. The story of Anne Heche keeps coming up in conversations around this topic. Anne Heche was Ellen DeGeneres' partner throughout the late 1990s. After their relationship ended, people close to Anne described a very different private reality from what was shown to the public. Sources who claimed to have worked with her on a documentary called Children of the Machine said she had seen things she spent years trying to process, and when she finally started putting them into words for that project, she became a liability to very powerful people. In August 2022, Anne Heche died following a high-speed single-car crash in Los Angeles. Her car slammed into a residential structure and caught fire. Toxicology reports showed drugs in her system. The official conclusion was an accident. People close to her believed the timing was not a coincidence, that she had been getting too close to information that certain people needed buried. Now, we are not stating this as confirmed fact. We are reporting what witnesses and people close to Anne have been saying. But when you understand the broader pattern Caviezel keeps describing, the question of whether powerful people silence inconvenient witnesses starts sounding like paranoia and starts sounding like documented history. Epstein himself died in federal custody. His cellmate was transferred out the night before, the security cameras outside his cell malfunctioned at the same time, and the man who knew more names than anyone in the history of modern elite scandal never got to say a single one of them in court. That's the world Caviezel is describing, and he's been standing in front of cameras talking about it at personal cost, professional cost, and what he clearly believes is potential physical cost. Caviezel's prediction is that the storm is already moving. Here's the part that makes him different from most people who just talk about this stuff online. He's not just looking back, he's making predictions, and they keep getting more specific. At conferences across the country, he's been describing what he calls the event, a reckoning that he believes is already in motion. He says the Epstein documents aren't an ending, they're the trigger.
trigger, the last domino before a cascade of arrests and exposures that he believes has already started. And here's what makes that impossible to just ignore. Over 300,000 children, 85,000 of whom crossed the border and vanished. Every name in those flight logs, every person at those private dinners, every guest in those estate basements, there are far more souls to save right now than there ever has been. Whether you share his worldview or not, the files are real, the names are real, the missing children are real, the pattern of silence and protection is real. And the question Caviezel keeps coming back to is the one no one has been able to answer. If all of this is known, why isn't anyone in jail? So who do you think is really at the top of this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think. Every single name we talked about today, Oprah, Ellen, Diddy, Epstein, has a full dedicated video right here on the channel. Go watch them. Connect the dots yourself. See if the picture you end up with looks the same as mine. I'll see you in the next one.